Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I will react to geography now. Oh no, it is not geography now, it's Second Thought. And I'm a patron of Second Thought, so I support him on Patreon. And yeah, we are watching now how Finland ended homelessness, and I have also a few Wikipedia pages here open. One, homelessness in Russia, homelessness in Germany, and a German article about also homelessness in Germany. At a few points in the video, I will ask a few questions or tell you also something about how it is in Germany. It's not perfect in Germany. I just read about it. It's not perfect, far from it, but yeah, I can imagine it's also worse in some other places or worse. So yeah, I hope you will enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe. And yeah, don't skip the introduction. I mean, you can do it. I don't mind, but use the chapters. I will hopefully also create for this video. And yeah, so I have a few questions also. So if you are from Russia, you can later in the video help me with a few things. I'm curious about your country, and I maybe want to move there at some point. It's all just ideas so far, but I have a few ideas, a few countries I would like to maybe definitive to visit and maybe even to live in. Russia, Japan, New Zealand, and maybe even an island in the Caribbean, but there I'm not sure. But definitive Russia, Japan, and New Zealand, which are all interesting countries in my opinion. And yeah, I want to visit them definitively. And I also maybe I could imagine also to live there. So let's not waste any more time. Introduction is now over. The chapter with the video starts now.
This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Get free access to Nebula, the streaming platform built by all your favorite YouTubers, when you
high quality.
Sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below.
I have done this. I'm not sure if I have done this through a link in one of his videos or through another YouTuber recommending it to me, but I have Nebula and CuriosityStream. It pays off. But sadly, I don't get paid for this advertisement. So yeah, I wish it would be.
600,000 people experience homelessness in the U.S. Think about your own life. You might not be homeless or necessarily even know someone who is or has been. But you certainly know someone paying too much for rent, someone having trouble finding a place to live, someone facing eviction. In other words, someone who could become homeless without much needing to go wrong. More and more Americans are joining this category every day. The truth is,
in my opinion, that it should not even be possible to make a profit through houses. You shouldn't be able to own more than one house or one apartment, because why should you? You can just live in one. Maybe you could argue that some people who really live in two apartments over because they have 1 week there, 1 week there, a few days there, a few days there. Also, you could argue, of course, that some people may have the right for two apartments. But why should you have hundreds of apartments, or even companies which have thousands of apartments? And then, yeah, why? It doesn't make sense in my opinion. You should not be able to do this. I'm against. I prefer when the government, when we all together, the whole country. I mean, no, the country in the way of all its people together own the apartments or own the houses. And if you have children, you of course have the right for. You should have a higher right to own, for example, or to live in a house with a garden. Also, you could argue. People who are old, who are sick, those people should probably have the better apartments, like with garden and so, because they need maybe a good surrounding to, for example, if they have cancer, if they are sick, to regenerate, to get healthy again. You could argue in this way that they should have the right for the better apartments or the better houses. Mm, and then you should just um give those people the house they need with the space they need, and they should not need to pay money for it. Well, it sounds socialistic. Yeah, I'm a socialist, so fuck off if you think very much different. If you are just curious about socialism, write to me or write to Second Thought. He can probably help you much better, or his community. But I can also try to help you in a way when you have questions about socialism a bit maybe. Anyway, let's continue. At some point, I will also talk about how it is in Germany.
Is that in 95% of US counties, those who work a full-time minimum wage job cannot afford even a one-bedroom apartment. Change that to a two-bedroom and the entire country becomes unaffordable. This situation is only getting worse. As a result of the pandemic, rising housing costs, wage stagnation, and the inadequate policies of our local and federal governments, the number of people experiencing homelessness and
This is just pervert if people have to live on the street. I mean, some people all choose to live this way maybe, but they don't choose to live this way in the large city or in a place like this. Maybe some people choose to have a life in the forest or in the countryside, in the outside area, or then also probably not in areas like Alaska or Sweden or Norway also, because that's maybe colder. But there are maybe some places in the world where people choose to live in the outside area without a house by their own choice. But except these people, no one would want to live like this. So maybe you don't want to have a large apartment or a super nice house, but no one wants to live on the street where all the way dogs can come in and people stare at you with this scum is living on the street or so. I mean, no one wants to live like this when they don't have to. So this is just pervert, and that's a failure of the government, the local or the federal in the United States. And I will talk about Germany also later.
Of people on the brink has been steadily growing for the past decade. That is, if you only look at the US. In this episode, we're looking at Finland's approach to homelessness, what housing first is, and what it could mean for the American economy. In Finland, only about 5,000 people, 0.1% of the population, are homeless. And that's even with the broadest definition of what constitutes homelessness, which includes more than who you typically think of when you hear the term. The Finnish definition of homelessness goes beyond just those who are living on the street or in emergency accommodations like shelters. In some cities, like the country's capital Helsinki, no one sleeps on the street. That type of homelessness has been
It is I think it's important if if you don't have a house, if I mean in a good world there would not be even places or apartments or so would you rent with money. You would just live in one and you would have the right to live in one. In this way, I like to mention also Russia here, because in this Wikipedia article there is still in the constitution the right to shelter. So what this basically means, how I understand this, if you are from Russia, please explain to me how this works in reality. But how I think about this. So the right to shelter is that you have the right to have a home, apartment or a house or whatsoever. So if you and how I understand this Wikipedia article here, I will put a link in the description. If you face eviction, if you can't pay your rent, then your the person where you rent the house or the apartment have to give you another apartment, a cheaper apartment. But they cannot just throw you on the send you to the street, or they cannot just throw you out of the apartment, because that's against the constitution, as I understand it. And if you are from Russia, please explain to me. This is very, very interesting for me, and this is it's from old Soviet times. So maybe they would not have put this into the constitution if in the country shape it is now. But from the Soviet socialistic or communistic or whatever it was at the time, they put this in the constitution, and I'm not curious how this plays out in real life. Be honest, I also don't like what's with the war, and so I'm against any war, and so that's not about the war. It's just about these basic things of humanity, which you show to your own people, and also to other people maybe, but it's just about the right to shelter, so not about the war. We can speak about the war in the second channel. I have videos there about the war. I will put maybe a link in the description, but that's not the topic of this video, so don't come to me with the war. That's something I'm curious about. And if we are already okay, I will watch a bit more of the video, then I will probably have a chapter for this extra small Russian topic. Let's continue with the video.
Completely eliminated. Compare that to the US's nearly 600,000 homeless people, which is almost exclusively so-called rough sleepers, those who live on the street, and the problem starts to become apparent. What's more important, though, is that homelessness isn't just low in Finland, it's actively going down. Between 2010 and 2018, Finland enjoyed a massive 40% decline in the homelessness rate. If it sounds like we're cherry-picking data, even during the pandemic, which, let me remind you, has caused a massive surge of homelessness in the US, homelessness in Finland did not increase. So what happened? How is Finland so effectively reducing homelessness? In 2007, the Finnish government started a national Housing First program. Housing First is a philosophy that argues that to make progress on homelessness, particularly chronic homelessness, you need more than temporary emergency solutions. You need permanent housing right out the gate.
Sounds logic. So you start to solve a problem by just building houses, maybe. Or I mean, I think there are enough houses, at least in some countries, and some maybe not. So there can also be different reasons why there are homeless people. So they can't afford the rent, or there are not enough houses which are cheap enough or which are available at all. So yeah.
In other words, housing is the starting point, not the end point. The way Housing First programs work is pretty simple. People experiencing homelessness receive independent housing immediately, without having to first fulfill mental health, sobriety, income, employment, or other requirements. Once they're housed, support services are offered, not imposed, and over time, the newly housed begin to finance part of the cost of their housing to the degree that they can afford it. It sounds pretty intuitive, but this is very different from the more common continuum of care or staircase approach we're mostly using.
I'm not sure how it is in Germany, what program is being used, but I just know that if you are homeless, there are, I mean, in Germany, in the law, at least from the Wikipedia article I found here, there is this chosen homelessness where you just decide to live on the outside, which maybe some people do, I'm not sure, and the unintentionally, so the homelessness which we are talking about, mostly people which don't want to live on the street but are forced to. So if you experience something like this in Germany, you go to the community, to the city center, to the not to the federal thing, but to you go to the in the city where you're living, to the kind of community center or state center or state of this local government. So there you go there, and you as it is normal in Germany, you have to fill a formula, and then they here in this text it is written that they are now then obligated to give you some kind of a house or a flat or a room, or which is not very I mean, for example, there must not be hot water in the room. It is not required by the law. There must be a toilet, there must be something where you can cook, there must be something where you can sleep and sit. And so the basic necessities are fulfilled, but for example, no hot water, but a room which is heated. So, and all of this, of course, I don't know if you have to pay for this later, but you from the text I'm looking here on, it is in German, that's why maybe you can read it, but For the text which are here in Wikipedia, I will also put the link from this text in the description. You can Google Translate if you are interested. From what is written in this text, the government, then the local government, the city government, have to then to give you this kind of small shelter with these basic necessities without hot waters. It's not required, at least. And I'm also not sure if you have to pay later for this or not, but you get it. You receive this help. It is not much, and it could be much better, and I think in Finland it is much better. But you're also not forced to sleep on the street where you could die, and so it's not like this. It's not like in the United States, but we are also a far away from perfectness. So now let's continue with there's also a Wikipedia article in English, which is very small, but I will still link it in the description. Let's continue.
Continuum of care programs, homeless people are expected to make progress on any mental health or addiction issues they may have, and to pass a certain standard before being housed. In this system, housing is at the top of the staircase. These individual changes that these programs require are the sorts of things that are incredibly difficult to address when you are still contending with the anxiety of not having a home, possibly still sleeping on the street. In these continuum of care programs, only once you have demonstrated some change, which we should keep in mind is incredibly difficult to achieve without housing stability, do these programs graduate you into housing arrangements. First shared housing, and slowly over time independent housing. To some, continuum of care approaches sound great. That is, in theory. They map onto our society's values of meritocracy, of security. Only those who are deserving get access to the prize of having a home.
Let's pervert. Everyone should deserve this without any requirements and unconditionally support and unconditionally. For example, also this how is it called? Unconditionally money that you receive every month. There was a name for this. I'm not sure yet, but this is also a great thing. I'll make a video about this also, maybe also a video from Second Thought. Let's continue.
Under this mentality, if you don't have a home, it must be because you're just not good enough yet. Come back later. It should be obvious that these programs just don't work. Not only do they strip people of their agency and come with an enormous moral burden, but recidivism is high, and a huge number of people don't make it into the program in the first place because of the high barrier to entry. Compare that to Housing First. In the initial study on Housing First, back in 2003, a randomized trial of the two approaches decidedly shows the strength of the new program. Around half of the initially homeless group were accepted into permanent housing, regardless of their eligibility according to other programs, and they were then offered tailored and optional care for their individual circumstances. The other half went through conventional channels, and at the end of the trial, the results were clear. The Housing First group spent more time in stable housing, less time hospitalized, and results carried over for longer than when homeless people went through the continuum of care path. Within just 6 months, Housing First had virtually eliminated homelessness in the experimental group. It was a massive success. That first study was in New York, and inspired by its promising results, the EU ran its own pilot programs in 5 European countries with the same outcome: secure, long-term housing stability. And now that it's become the official national policy of the Finnish government, we've seen just how much good this can achieve. It is abundantly clear that this approach works. Despite all of this, some of you might still be skeptical. Forget for a second that housing is a universal.
I'm not skeptical. I suppose this 100%. I would even go far more into the socialistic direction.
Universal right we are all entitled to, that it is baked into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the US has signed onto and agreed to provide in front of the entire international community. Forget that this right doesn't include temporary shelters, but only real, stable housing, and that there are metrics around accessibility, affordability, discrimination, and protection from eviction which good Housing First programs conform to perfectly, in addition to affirming the basic idea of being decent to real human people. You might still wonder about costs in the wealthiest country in the world that regularly provides housing subsidies mostly to the wealthiest people in the country through mortgage interest tax deductions costing the American people, I don't know, $70 billion a year.
No one needs this much space if other people sleep in the street. Pervert.
Or close to 25 times what is set aside for homelessness programs at the federal level. Imagine all that incredibly important stuff doesn't matter. It's gone. Forget about it. Housing First is still cheaper than not housing people or walking them through an ineffective continuum of care program. Not only are people housed through Housing First covering part of the cost and are more easily employed, but housing people saves money in the long term on comparatively costly emergency hospitalization bills and absurdly expensive policing, which both go down when 1. People's needs are taken care of preventatively, and 2. They aren't exposed to an expensive state apparatus that has criminalized existing without a house. Given all this evidence, you're probably wondering, why aren't we doing this? To be fair, there are some small-scale examples of this in the US. The US Department of Housing and Urban Development does fund certain homelessness programs, some of them with the Housing First methods. However, these programs are only robust in a few cities and states. But no matter the nature of the program, whether it's Housing First, Continuum of Care, or something else, funding is far too low. The HUD's budget and municipal aid funds have steadily declined over time, and as a result, programs scrape together a budget from the general public and several different local and federal funds, rarely ever amounting to what they actually need to provide effective services. But the main problem behind all of this isn't that homelessness programs aren't getting enough funding. That is an issue just a little further down the line. The underlying problem is affordable housing. And at the core of that problem is our capitalist organization of the economy. Under a capitalist economy, housing isn't treated like the right it's considered to be by most nations, including, on paper, the United States. Instead, it's a commodity, something to be traded, speculated on, turned...
This is also, as I said, something which we should desperately try to change, because multiple big companies own so many houses and they can do whatever they want with this. They can stand empty there. That's a crime, in my opinion, to just let a space where people could live be empty while others sleep on the street. That should be considered a crime.
For a profit. That is the main goal of housing in a commodity market. Not putting people in homes, making money. As a result, developers, investors, and the like don't focus their energy on housing the poor, from whom they can only extract so much, but rather on building luxury accommodations for the wealthy, leaving largely empty units across the country only rarely occupied, if at all, while people in desperate need of housing are refused access and subjected to a manufactured housing scarcity. On top of that, there is a very real incentive for capitalists to only partially resolve homelessness. The threat of losing the roof over your head keeps even...
That's always the main thing capitalists are doing. They like this possibility to have to make people be afraid of losing their house, losing the job. So that's why they can make the salary very low, because they know, and the people who work also know, that they can be easily replaced. So this thing, that's why we should put into the constitution. That's why I'm so curious about Russia in this case. So tell me, because what is written in the constitution can be very far away from how the reality looks like, and I'm sure it looks not that great as it is written in the constitution. So, but tell me about this, if you are from Russia. But this is possibility to threat people. That's why we should have a right for a workplace, a right for a house. Then they would not have this possibility to threaten the people, like the people which rent houses and the people which need work. So the capitalists would not be able to threaten people that they would just fire them and then replace them through a different worker, because they would maybe need to pay then a punish a fee to the government or so, because people have the right for a work, people have the right for a house. It does not say that the people have to work or have to live in this house. They just have the right for a space to live. They can still choose probably, and it would be logically if they would be able to choose the place or the city where they want to live. It's not that if you have the right for a house that you are then forced to live in this city or in that city. I mean, of course not. But you have the right. No one can just throw you out of the house. You also not, of course, if you're a landlord. So, but yeah, that's basic stuff for socialism.
Even the most exploited worker in a job they hate. Increasingly, that threat forces people into even more dire conditions as wages become less and less sufficient to cover housing costs, forcing people to take on several jobs and work untenable hours to avoid the possibility of eviction. It is not in the capitalist interest to remove that powerful, terrifying incentive. And here is where the Finnish success story may go beyond Housing First alone. Not only is Housing First doing a good job of taking people out of homelessness in a reliable way, but a social democratic organizing of the economy is limiting the extent to which people are likely to fall into it in the first place. It's still capitalism, so it still relies on somebody being exploited, in this case people in the global south, but at the very least...
And that's also something we have to overcome. I mean, we can all live on this earth together in a good way. Not everyone can have its own swimming pool. Not everyone can have the luxury they have maybe now. But everyone can have something. And I would much further live in the world where I have less than I have now, but where I know that everyone has at least enough to live in a proper decent way.
Social democracy goes part of the way on neutering perverse capitalist incentives on continuing homelessness domestically. One key element of this is unionization. High unionization at 75% of the Finnish workforce, and therefore higher wages and higher job security than in freer markets, mean that as people exit homelessness, they are unlikely to be replaced or fall back into it themselves. American conservatives love to rail against Housing First, touting its failures to make significant changes in cities like Los Angeles, where homelessness has continued to rise despite Housing First programs taking root. What they conveniently forget to mention is that the continuum of care programs they prefer still deliver worse results. And the core issue of the skyrocketing housing prices in the free market is why people are even pushed out into homelessness in the first place. The thing is, it doesn't have to be this way. There are solutions to...
We take a look on Vienna, on Wien, on Austria. In the capital of Austria, Vienna, it is there is 62% which live in subsidized social housing. There's a different video I maybe also react to, but I will maybe also have a link in the description so you can already watch it. But yeah, there's this,
reduced the scale of this issue. Earlier this year, the Gravel Institute released a great video on one of these solutions, the decommodification of housing. I'll put a link to that video and all of the sources for...
Yeah, you see, he already mentioned this video, what I'm also talking about, from the Gravel Institute, about Red Vienna in Austria.
For this one in the description. At the end of the day, the conclusion that you should take away from the Finnish case isn't just that this one type of program works really well at taking people out of an incredibly difficult situation for the benefit of everyone. It does do that, but that's not the point. The Finnish example gives us a glimpse of how we can treat housing differently. Instead of being a game for the wealthy to gamble their own fortunes and the livelihoods of millions of Americans, Housing First shows us what housing really is: a necessity, a right. It's something that must come before almost everything else, something which we must guarantee, or fail to recognize the humanity of millions of people. If you're interested in what the future of housing might look like, I highly recommend you check out Home of the Future on CuriosityStream. It's a fascinating look at cutting-edge production methods and radically different approaches to housing than those we see today. CuriosityStream is an established streaming platform with a solid track record of caring about great educational content and the financial security of those who produce it. They've got thousands of nonfiction titles from some of the best filmmakers in the game. As you probably know, YouTube doesn't treat its creators very well. That's why some of my YouTuber friends and I teamed up to build Nebula, so we don't have to worry about demonetization. As educational creators ourselves, we love CuriosityStream, so we've worked out a deal, where if you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below, you'll also get access to Nebula, 100% free. That's less than $15 a year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula. which, in my humble opinion, is a pretty great deal. Since you're already on the internet watching my video, why not spend some time learning about fascinating topics on CuriosityStream? Or check out Nebula's original content, including my upcoming series on the resurgence of fascism. You can also watch all my videos as they were intended, ad-free. There really is something for everyone, and by signing up at the link below, you're helping us produce more content without the fear of demonetization. Give CuriosityStream a shot, and get free access to Nebula when you sign up using the link below. It really does help support my channel and educational creators all across YouTube. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, do
just check out Nebula and CuriosityStream. I have both, so I can recommend this. And if you want to support him, choose the link of his description. So yeah, I like Second Thought. That's why I also became a patron. So makes sense. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can help me out with this questions I have about Russia and a few other things maybe. I not forgot anything. So like the video, subscribe for me and also for Second Thought, and we see each other again in the next video. See you next time.